Hey everyone, welcome back to more Flesh and Bad. And today I want to kind of create a little bit of a follow-up kind of tangent video to the Marlin Israel stream I did recently. So in this stream, I kind of talked about a lot of the more kind of competitive deck lists. So this was kind of going over Ben, Chandler's, and Kai's kind of recent Marlin deck lists that they all had some various levels of kind of competitive success with. But I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a detour from like the competitive kind of deck building side of things and kind of talk a little bit more of like an onboarding kind of introduction to Marlin. Basically, I wanted to try to make a video for people who want to learn about the hero but basically don't have like a frame of reference for where they should basically like look to start playing the hero. That's kind of like going to be the whole point of this video. So again, a lot of this is going to be like especially if you're a long time watcher of the channel, a lot of this is going to be a little bit redundant, but again, you might still like learn a thing or two. So I think it's worth kind of repeating, at least for some people who are like a bit newer to the hero, especially after like I think this recent stream was like fairly popular, like nearly like 2k views or whatever. But anyways, wanted to kind of do like a little bit more of like introductory video just in case like people were kind of like struggling with where to kind of start with the hero, and also just kind of give people like a good introductory deck list to the hero, because I think that's also kind of important. So anyways, I wanted to kind of start by giving like a brief introduction to what Marlin the hero kind of actually does, because I think like what she does is actually like a very kind of complex game plan. And I think it's a little bit difficult for like newer players to kind of like understand like where the strength of this deck kind of lies. So we're going to ignore the hero text for now, because the hero text will make a little bit more sense with kind of like the context of her cards. But let's actually kind of look first and foremost at the weapon. So Hammerhead Harpoon Cannon is basically a 4 cost action where you can pay 4 resources to get +4 power and also give a harpoon overpower, which is like the main kind of thing you want to be doing with Marlin. So the notable thing about Hammerhead is that it's a cannon. So any card that says if you activated a cannon basically will gain additional text if you've paid this cost. So a lot of the deck has basically been built around paying this cost, so having a lot heavier blue base and basically running all the cards that care about us activating our cannon, basically. So the kind of like big payoffs for this card are King Shark, or basically any card with Harpoon in the name. So that's mainly King Shark Harpoon, which is one of our best harpoons in the deck. So Go Fish is kind of like a very interesting keyword, which I'm not going to like explain in detail, but basically if you've activated cannon, the keyword basically gets a lot better. So baseline, the keyword, not very good, because your opponent can like choose to reveal like a non-attack, and basically you don't have to force them to discard a card. But if you get the cannon activation, you get this basically second line of text, which is always basically what you're going to try to be looking for. So if you've activated cannon this turn, instead look at their hand and you choose the card. So you get to basically choose an attack action out of your opponent's hand and discard it, which is very, very powerful. So again, a lot of the harpoons are basically just looking for their own very specific things. So like King Shark is looking for like attack actions. King Kraken is looking for like non-attack actions. And then the blue harpoons are each looking for a specific color. So like Bluefin is looking for blues, Redfin's looking for reds, Yellowfin's looking for yellows, and Shallow Water is looking for just any card in Arsenal, kind of, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's basically like the core of what the deck is doing, is you basically want to activate cannon and then play out your harpoons. Now again, I know a lot of this is like kind of like redundant but for people who have like never seen hero or like don't know the deck, then I think that that's kind of like worth repeating, that your entire game plan is revolved around activating Hammerhead Harpoon. So if you're like making the deck in such a way where you're whiffing on cannons and stuff like that, that's like a fundamental problem basically, because your whole entire game plan should basically be revolving around activating this cannon as much as possible. So now to support the cannon gameplay, so like we have this cannon aspect to the hero, but we also kind of have this like pirate aspect. So notably with rangers in particular, or with like arrow cards, you always have to play them from arsenal, which is kind of like the main restriction of ranger. So like this card, King Kraken Harpoon, cannot be played from hand. You have to play it from your arsenal. So the way that Marlin actually gets cards into her arsenal, which can sometimes be a little bit tricky, is basically through card draw effects. So you'll notice the second line of text here on Marlin where it says whenever you draw a card during your action phase, you may put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal. So any gold effect, so gold is basically drawing a card, any card draw effect can basically help you load in Marlin, which is really, really cool. So that's why we're running cards like 3 of a Kind, Big Game Trophy Shot, and kind of Portside Exchange, basically to facilitate all that card draw, which is very important. So again, that kind of explains like the core game plan of the deck. We're pumping arrows with our Hammerhead Harpoon and we're putting them in arsenal, right? And then most of the deck is basically just built around kind of buffing the arrows once we get past that point. So you'll notice that there are these cards that I like to refer to kind of colloquially as buffs. So we have like Cheating Scoundrel. This is basically +3. So this is a action that you put on an attack action, basically. So it's a buff. You're buffing an attack action. And currently there are 12 buffs in the deck. So we have Cheating Scoundrel, the big game trophy shot. This one is also just a very, very solid, like one of the best cards in the deck, which I'll kind of explain more in a second. But big game trophy shot is a buff, golden tip is a buff, and then catch of the day is a buff. And then we also have our kind of like pseudo buffs that are not like quite buffs, but they do give us like a little bit of additional value on our turn if we have like extra resources to spare. So we have like our Murderous Rabbles, which can actually convert into like actual physical damage. Same thing with our golden tipples. But we also have like our non-damage related buffs. So we have like Portside Exchange, which can convert to gold. We have C4 Salvage, which can convert into gold. And then we have like Shifting Tides, which can also convert into extra resources. All right, so now I want to circle back to Big Game Trophy Shot, which is one of the most powerful cards in their deck. So there's this third component to Marlynn. So we talked about basically the hammerhead portion. We talked about the drawing cards portion and like the reload portion. So now I want to talk about the material portion. So basically, Big Game Trophy Shot is like the perfect example of a material card. Basically, we're making a material, which in material is what in this case I'm referring to as a Goldfin Harpoon. So a lot of the use cases for Goldfin Harpoon, which basically, if you haven't seen the token, it's basically a token that you can create to your hand. And it has a lot of actually flexibility to it. So you can actually send this for damage as just like a 2 attack, which is sometimes like actually like a very reasonable play. But the third portion of the deck and where the deck actually gets a lot of the power from it is basically using this as like fodder to pay for other cards. So I'll give you kind of an example here in Big Game Trophy Shot. So Big Game Trophy Shot basically says it costs 2 and then you get +4, but you also draw a card and then discard a card. So now the cool thing about Big Game Trophy Shot is what you can do is activate Marlynn beforehand to actually make a Goldfin Harpoon into your hand. And then you can use that to kind of cheat the cost of Big Game Trophy Shot. So if you draw a card and discard a card and you discard a Goldfin Harpoon, you basically have paid a card and played a card to draw an additional card. So you're basically only paying 1 card to actually do this right now. And you can actually go resource positive. Like say you pitch a blue, draw a blue, and then you have like 1 floating from the Big Game Trophy Shot and you discard the Goldfin Harpoon. You basically like netted resources. So this is like a -1 value or like a -1 cost +4, which is like very, very powerful. But basically that's like the fodder portion of the deck or like the material portion where you're like using your material basically to either send damage or like pay for the cost of cards. So the one example we kind of cover is like Big Game Trophy Shot, but you can also actually do it for like Codex of Frailty. Like if there's a card you don't want to discard to Codex of Frailty, you can use that to like pay for the cost of Codex of Frailty, like the discarding clause of it. You can also do the same thing for like Golden Tipple. So you can like create a yellow card in your hand, which is normally your Goldfin Harpoon, and then discard that to create a gold token. And then finally, the last kind of like instance of that being used is like Portside Exchange. Again, there are like other ways that you can like theoretically like discard Goldfin Harpoons to like cheap value, but at least these are like the main ones, like at least in the deck that I kind of wanted to note. Basically, you're creating fodder to like get a beneficial effect, which is really cool. So anyways, that's like a 3-part overview of what Marlynn Treasure Hunter is, why I think she's really cool, and kind of like the gameplay patterns you can kind of expect to encounter when you're kind of playing the deck. Basically, Marlynn is this really disruptive, really high power sequencing deck where a lot of the choices that you're going to make are going to matter a ton. And you can basically get rewarded for a lot of the thought and decision making you can kind of put into your turns, which is what I think makes her like one of the most interesting heroes in Fab, especially given that you have like a lot of very clunky things going on that kind of like work together to make this like very, very powerful deck. So again, that was like a brief overview of like the main core cards of the deck. We're not going to talk too much about the sideboard. If you want like more information on the sideboarding, we're going to talk that's maybe better left for that one last stream we did, like the Marlynn is Real stream, which Tegan will kind of put on the screen right now. But anyways, that was basically kind of like a brief overview of just like how the deck plays, like why I think the deck is cool, and like the kind of like the I guess like the reason why I think you should play this deck. Now, the one thing that's prohibitive about playing this deck is the price point, which again, I'm not a huge fan of. Again, $1,400, that's like a rent payment for some people, which is a lot more than most people can afford, especially players who are not like enfranchised into the game and like maybe just getting into the game, etc. So I wanted to kind of break down like where this cost is coming from, just so you can kind of see like why is this deck so expensive. All right, so for the price of the deck, I wanted to draw your attention to the 7 most expensive cards in the deck to kind of give you like an overview of like why the deck is as expensive as it is, right? So the first and the most problematic offenders, I guess, are these two gems at the top, basically the two fables in the deck. So if I have Phidia and Authority of Taya. So Eye of Ophidia, I think, is probably the most powerful of the gems between like Eye of Ophidia, Authority of Taya, and Riches. So generally, Eye of Ophidia is like the hardest effect to place because you're running it into basically most matchups. Is just like a very powerful card that can help you like inform your draws. There's a lot of power basically behind Eye of Ophidia. But important to note is that a lot of decks are actually getting away without running Eye of Phidia. So if you look at Kai's deck list from the Marlynn is Real stream, I think they were basically not running Eye of Phidia. They're running like a Rusty Harpoon instead, which is really, really cool. So like Eye of Phidia is really, really good in the deck. I think it's very important. But like, is it worth $400? To most people, no, not really. So I think like the easiest like way to cut the price out of the deck is to cut like Eye of Ophidia and Authority of Taya. Now, Authority of Taya is a card that I know a lot of people actually don't like. Like I think Ben and Nate, who are both really good Marlin pilots who have been doing very well at callings, actually don't even like Authority of Taya. So like they don't like Authority of Taya, and they also don't like Riches of Triple Donnie. So like those are like two cards that are also like $700 in total between the two of them. This Taya is $300, but I think Rich is like $500 right now. So like something like $800. So that's $800 that we basically like don't have to include in the deck as well. I'm going to take a brief moment to skip over Tunic and Crown of Dominion to kind of talk about the next two kind of slots. So Quick Dodge Flexors and Base of the Mountain. We'll get back to Tunic and Crown of Dominion in a second, but there's a reason I'm going to leave those towards the end. So Quick Dodge Flexors and the Base of the Mountain are both kind of sideboard tech pieces that have been kind of recent developments. So Quick Dodge Flexors is mainly good into like very aggressive go wide decks. So like Syndra, Katsu, Arakni, Slippy, just any like deck that typically wants to present like 3 chain links wide, we typically want to try to run Flexors into. And Quick Dodge Flexors basically combos with our Trench to basically give us the quote unquote mini fridge, or basically 7 block value on equipment. Now, 7 block value on equipment is very, very strong. However, Quick Dodge Flexors is an $80 card. So are you losing that much by running just Sealay Sarong and Tunic? No, not really. Like basically, if you get like a Tunic counter that's maybe worth like 2 armor block, depending on the situation or something. Like in the ideal scenario, maybe it's like 2 armor blocks. So you're only really getting maybe like 1 or 2 extra value basically out of the mini fridge, depending on the matchup, which in some matchups it matters a lot. Like into Dash.io it can matter. Until like just a lot of like the go wide decks, like that extra couple points of life are going to matter a lot. But until a lot of decks, they're actually not going to matter all that much. So like $80 card is basically like kind of on the cutting block in terms of making like some budget space in the deck. And kind of a similar thing for Base of the Mountain. So Base of the Mountain is kind of like a interesting piece for a couple niche heroes. Decent into Valda, but does not really help you win that matchup. Pretty good into Jarl and also into Dorinthia, which I think is maybe seeing a little bit of a rise in popularity after the recent Hala Armory deck. So Base of the Mountain is still a pretty good card, but it's also $70. So like, again, are you losing that much by like not running like Sealay Sarong? Probably not, to be honest. So Base of the Mountain also is kind of like on the chopping block. All right, so finally, I want to save the 3 cards that I want to talk about last. Final Spring Tunic, Crown Dominion, and Gold Bearded Hook. So Final Spring Tunic is a card that's been around in the game forever, basically. It's one of the most powerful cards, giving you a resource every 3 turns. And also blocking 1, which is very, very strong. So Final Spring Tunic is a $100 card, which is, I think, probably worth it at that price point, just because it slots into so many decks. And basically, Final Spring Tunic will kind of almost never be banned, just the way the game is designed. Like, basically, they've shown that they want to keep Tunic as, like, the baseline for a lot of decks, and then they want to basically, like, power creep Tunic as much as possible. It's kind of, like, the direction they're going. So, basically, like, Final Spring Tunic should probably be around in the game in some capacity forever. Again, maybe not forever. Maybe there's some world where, like, it's super broken, they just have to get rid of it. But, like, for now, like, I don't see, like, a foreseeable future where they actually, like, ban Tunic. which is why I think it makes it one of the best like new player investments in the game because you can use it across like a wide variety of decks, which is really really cool. And like it also like in case like one deck LLs, you can like kind of move on to another or something like that. Basically, like Tunic is very very good in terms of just like new player value if you're looking to make your like first investment into the game. Now that being said, a lot of people don't want to spend $100 on a single piece of cardboard, which is very, very fair. So I'll propose some alternatives here in the form of Deep Blue, Heart and Cross Strap, as well as Blossom of String. I think those each have their own different merits depending on like how you want to go with it. But those are all like a pretty comparable effect. So I think like Tunic, as good as it is ultimately replaceable. You can find like a different kind of way to maybe get around the tunic, or like you can kind of mix and match depending on like what you want to try to accomplish out of like the chess piece slot. But those are like the three alternatives that I'd probably recommend. All right, next we're going to move on to Crown of Dominion. So Crown of Dominion is a card that fundamentally changes how the Marlin decks have been built. So basically, you get a starting gold, which is very, very strong in terms of you get to basically send damage on turn one consistently, which is really, really important. You also get to use it as fodder or material, as we kind of talked about earlier, for like big game trophy shop, portside exchange, etc. So Crown Dominion is very like fundamental to how a lot of recent Marlin deck lists have played. Now that being said, there are some recent deck lists that have actually done really well without Crown Dominion. So those are looking at specifically those New Horizons deck lists that have been kind of like popularized by Chandler Toe. So Chandler actually has been only running New Horizons, no Crown of Dominion, which is I think a little bit of a cheaper alternative, basically because of the New Horizons reprint. So if you're actually looking to maybe play a more budget-friendly version of the list that changes how the list has to be built a little bit, I'd maybe start as a baseline from Chandler's list and maybe try and build like a New Horizons deck list. But Crown Dominion, I'm actually going to try to keep in the budget deck for today, just because I think it's very integral to how I want to try to keep the deck mostly the same as how you would expect to play at full power, but also conceding a little bit on kind of the price point of the deck. The last card I want to point your attention to is Gold Bait Hook, which also like very fundamentally changes how the deck is kind of like played and how things kind of like work in the deck. So like playing the deck without Hook is like a really, really tough time. I'd probably not recommend playing Marlin at this point, but fortunately it's like $40-$50, which is like kind of borderline in terms of affordability price point. So again, I'd recommend if you do have like Gold Bait Hook, like playing the deck is very, very playing the deck with Hook is very, very good. And again, the effect is like not really replaceable on Gold Bait Hook, which makes it like pretty important to kind of like how the deck is played. There's not really like a great alternative or like a great like replacement slot in that case. And then I guess there is also maybe one other card that I want to kind of point out and mention. So that's Codex of Frailty, which did see a recent reprint, which has brought the price down to $25 a pop. But it's also $75 in total, which is like also kind of borderline affordability. Codex of Frailty is like one of the most powerful cards in the Ranger class, which is still like it feels weird to say that, but like it is like just a very, very powerful effect. So Codex of Frailty is also really, really hard to replace, but I think you can technically make a Marlin deck without Codex of Frailty. You'll just like notice that there's like a severe drop in power level. So I'm also going to include Codex of Frailty in this kind of budget deck list. But yeah, these are kind of like the main kind of cards that are contributing to the high price point of Marlin. And again, I think a lot of them you can kind of get away with without, basically. So Iophidia, Thorium Tire, Riches, I think are all basically replaceable at this point. Quick Dodge Fluxers, Base of the Mountain are also very replaceable. And then the cards that you're going to probably feel the most are like Tunic, Crown of Dominion, Gold Baited Hook, and then the Codex of Frailties. Like those are where like the main power of the deck is coming from, and those are like the harder effects to replace. So again, I'm going to leave this Marlin deck in the description. Again, the sideboard guide might not be as updated as the budget deck list, but I'm going to leave, we're going to basically stop talking about like the expensive version of Marlin, and now we're going to talk about the budget version of Marlin. All right, so now I want to talk about the budget Marlin deck list. So this is the deck list with all of the kind of expensive fluff cards kind of shaped off. So my goal for this budget deck list was to not make the deck play fundamentally different than kind of like the non-budget version of Marlin that I would kind of recommend. So this deck list still has, I think, a lot of the same power and potential as the previous deck list, just with a lot of the more expensive kind of tech cards kind of chopped off. And again, we kind of talked about where a lot of the price point is coming. So for this budget list, if we kind of look at the chart here, again, a lot of the price is coming from basically these top four cards here. So it's Fine Spring Tunic, Crown Dominion, Codex of Frailty, and Gold Baited Hook. Now, I think Tunic and Crown Dominion are probably the most replaceable effects in this deck, which will shave another like $200 off the deck. So you can probably get this actually for like reasonably like $300 if you wanted to like make a substitute with like New Horizon and maybe like Blossom of Spring for like Tunic or something. But in general, like that's probably the if you are looking to like shave even more off the deck, like those are the two spots that I'd probably recommend. But I think I'm gonna try to keep this budget version at roughly this for now. Again, $500 is still expensive, but again, you can try to shave this to $300 to meet your kind of budget needs as well. But this deck list, I want to try to make it as close to a competitive version of the deck list without like losing a lot of the play patterns that make the deck play fundamentally different. Because that also makes the deck like a lot more difficult, in my opinion. Like if you're playing like this version of the deck, like the lines are going to make a lot more sense. Basically, it's going to be like kind of a better learning tool. So yeah, the one thing you're kind of going to notice is that the main deck of this budget deck is very fundamentally similar to kind of the non-budget version. It's basically the main swap we're making is like tip the barkeeps or like adjusting the ratios between like burdens of the past, tip the barkeeps. And then we're basically like making room for the Iva video that we cut. So we're keeping the ratios basically the same and the fundamental like cards in the deck very similar so that the play patterns are like similar to what you'll see basically in like my videos and stuff. So like if you want to like see gameplay examples, you can check out like our Marlynn playlist as well. Which will kind of give you a little bit more kind of like in depth into, I guess, like how the deck is played. But this deck, like my goal here is to make this as similar as possible to the deck that I play on stream, basically. So yeah, this deck list I've actually included like a full sideboard for. Again, I'm gonna try to maintain this budget Marlynn deck list as much as I can, and if I have any like updates, I'll try to like update it regularly as well. But again, if there's anything that doesn't like make sense in the comments, feel free to like ask me questions about the budget Marlynn deck list, and we'll kind of try to talk it out in the comments, or like I'll try to like adjust the list as we go. But basically, all of these should be included with like matchups and like sparse sideboard, like basic sideboarding, like do I want to go first or second, and like also like what cards should I bring in? But yeah, the sideboard here is also, I try to keep it pretty similar to the previous Marlynn deck list. So we have our battering bolts basically for any deck that's like we want to swap a harpoon out for. So like if King Shark or King Kraken's not super relevant, then we bring in our battering bolt as a harpoon. We also have our kind of just various cyber techs, so Remembrance for Fatigue, Tar Pit Traps, High Current Currency just as a swap for Throw Caution in the Wind. That also kind of synergizes with like Tip the Barkeep as well. Tar Pits are, going back to the Tar Pits are actually really good into like decks with like a lot of like aggressive on hits. So like into Slippy, it's really good. It's like Katsu, Syndra, like generally Tar Pit Trap I think still warrants an inclusion. Um, just because like it's very good into like some of the niche heroes we kind of play against. We also have some kind of like hero specific tech. So we have like Minion on the Battalion Bark. That's kind of like some specific like Victor sideboarding tech. So basically we can like steal their gold and like kind of get some value that way. We also have Barb Barrage, which can help a little bit into Gravy. Again, doesn't make that matchup great, but like helps into like Gravy and Prism basically to kind of like get around like ALS or like Chum basically are like the main use cases for this card. And finally, I think the question I'd probably get most asked about in Purple Discord is Honing Hood because I think that uh like in previous like Marlynn videos, I talked about Honing Hood being like a kind of like anti-warmongers tech, which I think the card is basically like, in my opinion, like the thought process around this card has like evolved a lot since then. So Honing Hood is basically a card now that we basically almost always want to run going second. Basically because it will allow us to block with a bunch of cards in our hand and then put a arrow or like some other value kind of piece in our arsenal. So like a Codex of Frailty, depending on the hand, or like a 3-oak or something, basically like that. So Honing Hood is actually very, very powerful in terms of like if you're going second and you're able to like shove your hand in front of your opponent's attacks and they want to try to set up an arsenal. So like but let's say they send like 6 damage at you and then you like block 2 cards and then maybe send like another 3 at you or something like that and you block another card. This basically lets you go up on a card like over your opponent. So you're basically drawing an extra card over your opponent, which is very, very powerful. So basically, I want to run this card into like most heroes going second. There are a couple like notable exceptions, which I kind of like pointed out in the sideboard notes. But basically for Honing Hood, I basically tend to flex this between first or second. So if I'm going first, I want to run Crown Dominion. If I'm going second, I want to run Honing Hood. Because the effect is like very, very powerful on Honing Hood. Oh yeah, I did also want to mention actually Honing Hood is maybe like a decent if you like are looking for like even a more budget option than New Horizons. I think New Horizons is like also still pretty budget. But if you're looking for like even more of a budget kind of option, Honing Hood is actually like pretty reasonable, kind of like a replacement for Crown Dominion, which is kind of cool. So maybe an extra kind of consideration there. But Honing Hood, I basically in the competitive deck list, I always basically want to go run going second so that I could try to like high roll basically a random good arsenal card into our opponent. So that's mainly your arrows. Codex is assuming that you block with an arrow, and then three of a kind. Yeah, but if you look at like the sideboard guide basically for Honing Hood, I basically run into like most heroes going second if you look. So Honing Hood is just like a very, very good card going second. I'm very, very partial to running it going second to try to like high roll a random arsenal over your opponent because it's like a very, very powerful effect basically. But you'll see I kind of like run it into like most heroes from the looks of it. So oh, I guess I don't run into Jarl because if you break Honing Hood, like you make a frostbite or whatever. But that's basically like the use case for like Honing Hood. And you don't run into everyone, but you like if you see it in the like matchup notes, if I include both of them, it's basically like a first seconder thing is kind of like what I'm trying to convey. All right, so anyways, this is kind of like my introduction to like a budget focused Marlin list. Again, budget being a very relative term for very different groups of people. Again, 500 budget and $500 maybe budget to some people, but not budget to other people. But again, we kind of explored other ways to kind of like reduce the cost of the deck, which I think is also quite valuable. But yeah, I wanted to kind of go and showcase some gameplay with this deck because I think that this deck is roughly the same power level as like my normal competitive deck list, but just missing a couple like the tech cards that make specific matchups kind of better. So yeah, we're gonna go and get into some games, but I did want to quickly kind of just shout out some other resources that you can kind of use to learn about Marlin. So Tegan's gonna put this on the screen right now, but basically for free, you can check out the Marlin playlist that we have. I think there's also NovaPab. They put out a couple Marlin videos as well. And then I think there are a couple of card guy streams and streams with Agroblaze, basically, where they were also playing Marlin, which I think are quite useful. And then we also have Taylor's paid Metafy guide, which I think is also quite good. So that I think was updated fairly recently. So again, I think that's also a pretty good resource if you're actually looking like pay for content. And then yeah, basically those are like the kind of resources I would kind of recommend. But yeah, again, just a reminder, if you have any questions or concerns about the sideboard, feel free to post them in the comments. I'll try my best to kind of address them. But yeah, for now, I wanted to kind of demonstrate how you can kind of play Marlin on a budget and kind of get a lot of the same power levels. So let's go ahead and get into some games. Got an Ira. So generally, I think we prefer to go second in this matchup, but looks like they're going to put us up first. Or actually, they're going to go first, so we're going to go second. So that's actually good for us. So we generally prefer second Ira. And then we could debate on the tar pit trap, which I think is reasonable. I think high current currency is also reasonable depending on the IRA, but I don't think we necessarily need that. We could actually probably bring that in over like one throw caution. I might actually change the sideboard just in case. Maybe the high current currency is actually kind of reasonable here. But yeah, I think this all looks good. So let's hope that our Honing Hood turn one is good. It looks like it probably is, given that we have the shallow water. So what kind of IRA do we have here? I'm actually kind of glad I brought in that high current currency as well. Generally just pretty good against Tunic decks, but you know, kind of just nice as like a gold sort generation source if you need to like block out on a turn. It's pretty good. So looks like there may be a little bit more of a fatigue style IRA based on their equipment setup. I've seen a little bit more like aggressive IRAs that have like kind of like they're running like blood spatter vest, like knives and stuff. Always a little bit hard to tell, but I think what we're going to do here is just block with Gold the Tip on Chainlink 2 just to stave off the mass trigger and also a little bit of damage. Notably, they could potentially punish us with a cut through. But my kind of goal for this hand is I want to ideally just try to Honing Hood in this Shallow Water Shark Harpoon and then maybe block with these two cards if they present damage. If they don't present damage, I'm actually like kind of fine to just like IP these cards as well. And Sigil's a pretty good start from them. So this is probably kind of like good, I guess, use case for the power of Honing Hood. So we're basically getting a card up on our opponent on the starting turn. They are kind of going to try to go for a punish on the CNC here, but fortunately we do have the 2/3 blocks to counter this. And the actual added benefit of this, and the reason I kind of went for this line is that we do get to turn over a Gold Tip as well. So we're basically trading in our Honing Hood for an extra card, and then we also get to start on the gold as well, which is kind of gross. And they also don't get an arsenal, so very risky play from them that actually worked out pretty well for us. So now we get to actually do kind of a power line in Marlin. The only downside is they currently don't have an arsenal, so this would be a lot better if they did have an arsenal. But I think we still probably go for it just because it's like the most damage efficient thing we can do. So we're gonna pop our gold, and then like one of the strongest things that we can do in Marlin, obviously, is big intro. Like this card is like kind of a power card in Marlin, kind of along the lines of maybe not quite Blood Rush Bellow tier, but like pretty high up there in terms of like the actual value you can kind of generate from this card. All right, so this is actually rather unfortunate here. So we do hit a whiff on the red on the top. So one thing you have to be a little bit careful is like navigating the kind of Marlin whiffs. When you're like cracking gold or drawing cards, there's always like some percentage that you're going to draw multiple reds in the same hand. So this is a little bit unfortunate. So now the only real reasonable way to, so there's two ways we can convert this hand. We can either pitch everything to Hammerhead, which is reasonable, or we can just lose the +4 on the Hammerhead and just send 9 no overpower. So I think I'm actually going to go for that because King Shark is one of our best cards in the deck. So resolving the first King Shark is very, very important in terms of just like getting your Codex of Frailties online. Like I think this kind of makes sense to like not send the additional +4 in order to hold on to an arsenal. Plus, we're already threatening like the gold on hit here, so they're like kind of incentivized to block anyways. Oh, and let me go ahead and enter streamer mode so you all can see the card. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, so it looks like they're maybe gonna D-react us here. Maybe like set up an arsenal or something. Oh, okay, no D-react, so that actually is pretty good for us. So we get to refresh our gold, which is always good. Holding on to at least like 1 gold as Marlin is also very important just for like loading. The only unfortunate thing is we're not like leaking too much damage here. Like I think they started at what 43, so only dealt 2 damage a turn, but not the biggest deal in the world. So the thing we gotta watch out here is for another CNC. So we're not gonna block on this chain link. If they do have another CNC, it would probably be here, and then we would probably block 7 right there. So okay, called it. Another CNC right on time. So this is probably like the worst case for us, but like still not that bad just because we're kind of early enough in the game that we don't have to like use armor inefficiently. So let's go ahead and give them 7 here. And I think we're going to plan to basically just throw this King Shark at them next turn. Still seems like they're more maybe of a fatigue variant of Ira. And we do have 2 CNCs out of the way, which is probably actually a pretty good thing for us. So King Shark is one of our best cards in the deck in general. Again, I'm kind of going into a little bit more detail than I would in a normal video, just because I think it's helpful also to like talk through lines to people who like haven't played the deck before. But King Shark is like one of our most powerful cards in the deck that I was maybe kind of mentioning earlier. Both the harpoons, depending on the matchup, can be independently powerful, but I think King Shark is like the most consistently powerful card in the deck. Okay. And unfortunately, we don't get to connect with the King Shark here, which sometimes happens. It seems like they basically had the double D-react hand, but like we're actually kind of fine with this because we at least have full tempo and they did have to like pitch a card here. So we're actually kind of up in the scenario, as weird as that is. Oh, look, we have another King Shark as well. So this is actually a great use case to kind of show off Tipple here. So what we can actually do is pop our gold. And there are a couple ways they can actually kind of punish us for doing this. So notably, what we do have to be a little bit careful of is Ripple Away. So I'm not going to hook on the Tipple, but that is a play you can normally do. So since they're like a little bit more fatigue Ira, it's pretty likely that they're on the card Ripple Away, which like prevents us from generating tokens. So gotta basically like turn off our hook, which means our hook would most likely break in that scenario. So in this case, I'm just going to go for the Tipple first and kind of see what they do. They might have a Ripple in hand, in which case we'd probably see it in response to the Tipple, but looks like they maybe don't have one here. And now we draw one of the most powerful cards in the deck, but I don't think we're actually going to use it yet. So in general, 3 Oak is best paired with either A, blocking with cards to try to like get the value there, or you alternatively want to try to pair it with like a bunch of buffs like a like cheating scoundrel or like a big game trophy shot or a gold to tip or catch of the day. 3 Oak generally is best paired with like 1 arrow and then a bunch of buffs in your hand to kind of like get the max value. But Tipple actually being super convenient on this hand, so now we get to go ahead and close the chain, and now we get to send another King Shark. So we're hoping they probably don't have D-reacts for this one, although that being said, their deck might be like mostly D-reacts at this point, so this will be at least a good example game into like a very, very defensive deck at least. But we're gonna go and send the King Shark here, which should be mildly disruptive, or it should at least force like 2 to 3 cards from hand, depending on how they want to block. Assuming that they do want to cover it, in which case it might end up giving us a couple pieces of equipment here. So it looks like they're currently taking 3 from the Stonewall and the Mask. Let's see if they want to give us another react here. They also give us quick dodge, but that wouldn't like fully cover. It almost feels like it's like another react here, maybe. Important thing to note to this deck is like this deck, you do have to fight through your opponent's D-reacts. Especially since like overpower is the keyword that is kind of awkward. Oh, but it looks like they don't actually have a react here, which is really good for us. So I feel like most scenarios are probably taking attack from their hand here. It looks like their hand is just like really, really bad, right? So we're actually very fine with this hand. So we probably want to leave them with like the worst attack in their hand. So the 2 rising knee thrusts are like pretty bad. So we'll take the Winds of Eternity there. And we're getting another gold, which is also fantastic. So now our gold pile is nice and healthy, and our opponent's not really sending any meaningful disruption at us next turn, which is great. And they also lost Mask, which means they're not drawing cards. So overall, very good for us. Life totals have been out, but we've also got rid of a lot of their armor, which is quite good. Ooh, and we have to Tip the Barkeep. So Tip the Barkeep is a card that I normally don't run in a couple of my lists just because I sometimes find it a little clunky. But it could actually do some interesting things in this hand. So we can go like Tip the Barkeep into maybe like some kind of weird double harpoon line. I'm interested to try it. Again, I think Ben's a lot higher on this card than I am personally, but I think that this card, like the few times I played it, it has been powerful. It just sometimes is like a little bit awkward to line up, just because like sometimes you don't always have like the nuts hand to kind of use the action point, but here we actually do, which is kind of nice. All right, so we're gonna pretty much just take all this damage. Again, it's all vanilla damage, so no real disruption behind it. Okay, it looks like they're maybe gonna just arsenal the blue there, or like IP with the blue. Kind of curious why they didn't just like send the damage there. But regardless, we'll carry on here. So let's go ahead and play our Tip the Barkeep. Like halfway tempted to also crack like just 1 gold here. Let's crack 1 gold and kind of just see what we can find, because we draw something good here. Okay, interesting hand. So we have a couple things we can actually do here. So I feel like the line probably involves 3-oaking from. So important thing to note is that 3-oak says you cannot play cards from your hand. So we have to, I think, play the one from hand. So what we're going to do is double 3-oak this turn and hold the last 3-oak. So let's go ahead and start with this 3-oak. But basically, we have to like sequence the 3-oak from hand first to get the max value here. So this hand is going to be interesting. So we're gonna probably try to arsenal this one, and then maybe try to use our rum to kind of like convert this very huge hand, I guess. So let's go ahead and pitch the elephant harpoon, because I think we're probably looking for like just a slightly better arrow. Okay, that is actually probably the perfect arrow. So now we can show off at least a cool shallow water shark line. Although that being said, it's like not amazing, I guess. It's like fine. I guess more than anything, this is just kind of a abundance of resources. All right, so let's go ahead and crack. So we actually want to activate our hammerhead first, and then we can go ahead and crack our Gold Kiss Rum to give the Redfin go again. And then after that, I guess we can send the shallow water, maybe threatening the hook on the back of it. So we want to crack like 1 more gold, and then we can just like keep these 3 cards in hand as kind of the ideal. So normally you don't see all 3 of your 3-of-a-kinds on the same hand, so navigating it can be a little bit tricky. But generally you want to try to like space these out for like turns where you're like blocking or like doing a very powerful thing like playing a bunch of buffs in a row. But fortunately we're kind of setting ourselves up for a pretty good hand to do that kind of next turn. Let's see if I can maybe catch them with the Redfin here. If we can get like a red out of their hand, that would probably be like best case scenario. And they might have just sunk it into 1, so that's actually pretty good for us. Unless, of course, they maybe have like another D-react here. Right, so let's take a look at their hand, see what they got. So we do actually get to take a red here. So one benefit I guess I'm kind of having here is that I think people kind of struggle a little bit into Marlynn because she's like a very high lots of words on her cards, right? So I think the better play for them there is to maybe like pitch the red to the quick dodge flexors, but that's okay. Again, these are kind of like just demo games to like get people kind of familiar with the deck. So again, any opponent will kind of do here. So let's go and crack a gold so we can just send like 5 more damage. And we can also threaten a hook here, which is kind of nice. I guess it will threaten the last card out of hand. I actually don't know if this is correct, but we might as well do it since we already popped the gold kiss from here. I feel like I was committing to this line anyways, so maybe it's fine. I don't know. This is kind of like a goofy line. Questionably good, I guess. But us being able to actually make the gold there means that the line actually ends up being a lot better than it kind of initially might have seemed. So I imagine they're probably just going to quick dodge here, or maybe they want to block. That's also fine. We got the last card out of their hand. I think I'm also happy with that. Okay, so they're really just going to give us dodge plus the shallow. Well, like overall, it's fine. I guess we like forced the last like bad card out of their hand, but next turn we're probably going to like explode them because we have 3 oak plus catch of the day and cheating scoundrel. The one component we're actually kind of missing here is the arrow. So one thing I actually want to be careful about is if we draw a codex, I want to be able to play the codex. So there's kind of like an anti-synergy between arsenaling the 3 of a kind and then having codex in the deck, because you need to like play the 3 oak first, but then you can't play the codex afterwards, basically. So we're actually going to arsenal the cheating scoundrel here and hold on to the blues just in case. This might be a hand. No, we're probably still 3 oaking this, right? I was always debating if there was a world where we want to hold the 3 oak, but using 3 oak to play catch of the day I think is pretty high value, especially when Ira tends to be a bit more like attack action heavy. So we get to do all the fun Marlynn things. One thing we can also consider is cracking a gold to draw an extra card so that we can cheating scoundrel, but I think actually is probably the best play. Let's draw like one more card just because I want to pitch 2 to the king shark and then hold an extra card back to potentially discard to the cheating scoundrel. So let's go ahead and go for the gold bait hook. We could get punished here by Ripple Wave, but we don't actually know our opponent's like running that, so we can be maybe a little bit more cavalier here. But if they do break the hook, it's not really the end of the world. And we still have like presumably 2 gold on the end of this, although if they had Ripple, we'd probably just be at the 1 gold, but that's still kind of fine, especially when we have a pretty good arsenal setup. That's even assuming if they're running Ripple away, and if they're not running Ripple away, then this play is actually quite good. Okay, so we see a weakest link, which is notably like not that good into Marlynn, but it's like fine, I guess. Yeah, it looks like they're playing like a very fatigue-oriented build of Ira, which makes sense. Again, their numbers value here is like kind of catching up with them though, because they're having like pitch reds to like unmovable and stuff. So I think they're just drawing into some really awkward hands here. But we're gonna just capitalize on basically having free tempo for the rest of the game, which is real good. Ooh, and there's our spicy burdens of the past as well. Ooh, so this is actually another kind of interesting line we got here. So we can go for a shallow water shark line. Is pretty good. So let's actually go ahead and start by cracking gold. So we actually probably want to use our sea lice here to give this harpoon go again, so that at the end of it we can maybe potentially use this codex. So does the king crack and draw off the top actually work for us here? So we can pitch. Might not actually. Actually, is there a way that we can make this work? Hold on. We go like this. We have 1 floating. We have to pay 1 for here. Could actually try to use 2 gold to do that. I don't know if that's actually worth it. I think we're going to just try to set up this codex for potentially next turn and just try to get them with kind of 10 damage this turn. I think that's probably a more reasonable line. I think if we drew a blue up the top there, the go again into codex grabbing shallow water shark harpoon would have probably been the play. Interesting to think about. Lots of options on Marlin hands. We'll see if we caught them on potentially a 2 blue hand here, because they are blocking with at least 1 blue. Seems like their deck is like just very, very red heavy though. I'm kind of curious to see if they're maybe going to give us some more reds here. Yeah, a lot of their reds aren't converting super well, as you can kind of see. Like they're having to do like sigil, like pitch sigil to Oasis, which is like pretty rough. Right, Remembrance as well. We're playing against a full fatigue IRO and we like didn't board for it, but we still have our quiver as kind of backup here, which is always good. So we're probably going to be looking to play that in the late game here. And we know that they're either going to play the Remembrance or maybe Arsenal it or pitch it. That's also another option. So now do we have an interesting shallow water shark line? So the Codex notably does load face down, but is that worth it? I'm gonna just pass here. We might just end up playing out the tip the barkeep, so we can maybe set that up for later in the game. This is actually only our first Codex. So I kind of actually like just maybe like giving the shallow water as blocks, playing tip the barkeep, and then just going for like a king shark here. I think it's probably like our highest value line. The one downside is they're probably going to get like a CNC back, which is like a little awkward. The nice part is we also don't really have to Arsenal. So this will be a little bit of an interesting turn. We'll not give them a gold. And we'll Codex. We could also go for a shallow water shark harpoon if we wanted to potentially just clear the CNC out of their arsenal. Which is like kind of reasonable. Let's actually maybe go for the shallow water shark harpoon just because like we know that they're probably going to get a CNC back. It's actually kind of funny that it might be better given that their arsenal is like probably the highest value card in their deck to like grab that first. Okay, they're discarding a Fiddler's Green, which is actually pretty good for them. Now let's go ahead and threaten the CNC in their arsenal. If they're actually kind of smart, what they could have done is also grab the Sirens of Safe Harbor, which would have gotten like blown up, put into the graveyard. They gained another life if they couldn't block this. Oh, maybe they can. So we'll see what they kind of want to do here. But again, threatening the CNC is probably like the highest value thing we can kind of do here. Okay, another removal. Again, not the end of the world here. At least they can't play the CNC next turn, which gives us kind of an opportunity to go off an arsenal. Ooh, and another Codex is nasty. Okay. The one downside is that our high current currency, they have their tunic currently on 3, so it's not super great right now. But I think, they have a couple options on this hand, each of which kind of has a downside. But I think we're still probably supposed to go for the big game trophy shot here. So the only downside to this is we might end up discarding a card, like a real card, from the Codex of Frailty here. So now we have an opportunity to gamble if we want to. So if the top card of our deck is a blue, that means we can play the Tipple out, discard the Goldfin, and that would threaten another hook activation. But I think for now we're just going to probably go for something like this. I think discarding C4 Salvage kind of makes a fair bit of sense. And then let's go ahead and just send the King Shark here again. Yeah, we know they still have CNC in Arsenal, so like if we can rip a blue out of their hand, that would probably be like the most beneficial thing. Again, they should be running out of Diriax at some point, hopefully. We still actually have a lot of our 0 for 4s so we have to work through, but we have 2 unmovables out of the way, which is pretty good. So overall, could be worse. And they are up at least a couple cards, but we do have the Abyssal, and Hammerhead starts to add up over the course of the game, so we're probably not in terrible shape here. Looks like they're also on Flickflax, makes sense. And Fate, good. Might be expecting another D-React here. Okay, now third D-React is nice. And now we take a blue out of their hand. So the one important thing that we want to remember is we don't want to arsenal here because we know that they're most likely just going to be sending a CNC. Yeah, I think there's no real reason to actually arsenal the C4 salvage because we don't actually maybe really want to play it. So they have the choice here between like sending 1 damage with Kodachis and like holding onto the CNC for a better opportunity. Or they can just send the CNC for damage, which we're also kind of fine with since this is not really like a damage matchup, more of a kind of just fatigue matchup. But again, I wanted to kind of like showcase that this deck is like very possible to play into fatigue even without like Ataya and stuff. And even without remembrance in our current board, like I think we're still actually doing pretty okay this game. All right, looks like they're going to just send the CNC, which I think makes a fair bit of sense. So we're going to drop down to 28, which is still pretty healthy. We still only have 2 CNC scenes, so they might have like another one at some point. But we should be in the clear at least for the near future. Let's go ahead and crack a gold so that we can go for a trophy shot line. Ooh, and we have another gold to tip. So we have the option between discarding it, or we can alternatively like pull Tunic. We're supposed to discard a gold to tip, even though that kind of hurts. I think it's not worth like pulling the Tunic counter to do that. Because what I do want to do is like preserve buffs in the deck because they're generally like your main source of like kind of pushing damage. But like holding a sunken treasure in the deck is like also pretty high value. And getting to threaten the cannon activation obviously is really good because it means they like can't fully block. But now we're sending 13 into their hand, which means they were probably buying some D-Reacts or something. So overall, this should still be fine. And going off an arsenal, we know that they have potentially 1 last CNC is also quite beneficial. So we're kind of just doing a pretty good job, at least on the out-mathing, out-tempoing front. But the part where it's going to start to get tricky is like the pushing damage part. That's going to be like the most difficult portion. Ooh, and they're actually going to hit us with their ripple away. When did they want to ripple away? They should have, if they wanted to ripple away, they probably should have done it in response to the gold to tip, right? Interesting. Maybe they want to block. Okay. Huh. Yeah, I think there's maybe an opportunity to do the ripple away on the Golda tip, because otherwise, if they did it after, we would have had the opportunity to like not hook there, which is interesting. Again, we're going to be making another 2 gold, which is quite nice. So like a 3 gold positive turn. Fantastic. All right, no point in blocking since they're not really sending any real damage our way. Oh, okay, there's last CNC. Perfect timing without an arsenal, so that's great. So now do we have the opportunity to do a cool codex line? Potentially. So the line would have to involve... I feel like it's just not worth it, though. Which is also, like, kind of sometimes why I like the ROM. So we have two choices here, basically. We can, like, crack gold to go for, like, bluefin, give it go again, then pull Tunic, like, Codex, and then get the Shallow Water, which is pretty good. But I feel like the better line here is maybe just trying to send 13 damage total with the Codex. So I think we did whiff on the Murderous Rabble, which is, like, a little unfortunate. I almost wonder if maybe the other line was like less risky, but like still getting like a lot of value out of the codex, I think is quite reasonable. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our King Shark. Again, they're gonna have to probably get their last CNC here. But again, we don't really have to keep an arsenal if we don't want to at this point. We basically have like kind of infinite gold, or like enough gold to kind of last us probably the rest of the game. So we'll go ahead and just start sending our King Shark here. Again, like the way you can kind of beat fatigue as Marlynn is just like clicking your weapon every turn, like getting an extra +4 every turn is very hard for a lot of decks to beat, even when they're running like every D-React in the game or whatever. So we're still doing pretty fine here, I think. Again, they might like triple D-React this or whatever. The important thing to note is that they have shown us that they're on ripple away, so we do have to be a little bit more careful with our hook if we want to save it. Let's see what their hand is at this point. So we get to discard an attack. That's fantastic. So we're getting a lot of our really good incremental value at this point. So I think this is going to be a hand where we're going to try to go for some real nice burdens values. How many D-Reacts do they have in the bin? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh, we're like one short. So I think, how many do I have in this list? I think I have another one somewhere, right? We haven't like blocked with it or anything. So I think we're actually going to just go ahead and use this first one, but let's go ahead and try to crack some gold and see if we can find another blue here. Would be ideal. So we have blue plus tunic, which basically means we get to convert 2 gold into an additional card, which is really cool. That's like one of the most powerful things you can do with Marlynn is using your like tunic to basically draw, spend 2 gold to draw a card, which is cool. But let's go ahead and try to ruin their life with this Burdens of the Past. The one downside here is that we don't particularly want to keep an arsenal, so like, I almost wonder if we're not supposed to actually arsenal this King Kraken here. Maybe. Also, is there like a D-React that I'm like missing here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, yeah. So Burdens is not quite in like the insane mode kind of territory yet. That's okay. Burdens is still probably going to be pretty good here. Target our opponent. And then the King Kraken probably shouldn't matter too much, but some Iras are on like Warmongers. So we can maybe catch them off guard with that. I mean, I'm mainly just doing this to kind of like push damage more than anything. Because the Burdens is technically like card negative, but like we're forcing them to like IP with cards, which is really powerful. It's kind of interesting that like Burdens is a card that like fatigues yourself, but it also like can help you like push damage, so you kind of have to like play it anyways. I don't know. I still like think Burdens is in one of those like weird like flex blue slots that you can probably kind of get away with like not running if you want to run like a different blue. Again, it's kind of like personal preference, but I also think that Chandler kind of likes this card a lot, so I wanted to kind of like try it out. I think it's like also like a pretty reasonable include if you're not running like a Taya, for instance. All right, let's see what their hand is here. So they did have the unmovable, which they are now not able to play, which is very funny. They will be able to get it in Arsenal, which is unfortunate, but not the end of the world here. So we're not even going to Arsenal this because we just like don't care about the damage they're sending. Like, I don't want to have to force myself to be in a situation where I'm blocking next turn. It's kind of the idea. Like, I want them to just functionally be sending the CNC for vanilla damage. So we're going to basically just tell them to kind of send us the bill here. Don't really mind all this damage too much because eventually they're going to run out of D-Reacts. That being said, still that one immovable to fight through, so I have a little bit of work cut out for us. Oh, they had Sirens. Oh, maybe did I miss that? Oh, I thought maybe they bought back the Sirens with the Codex at one point. I forgot about that. So that's something we probably should have actually arsenal this Kraken. For some reason, I thought this was like the last CNC for some reason. Okay, I don't actually know where I thought that. But regardless, we'll carry on. So we get to go back up to 8. We go to 11. So life totals are still fairly even here. And what good threats do we have left in our deck? So still have catch of the day, which is pretty okay. Or we still have 1 catch of the day, 1 burdens, 1 tipple, some murderous rebels. So let's go ahead and draw some cards here. I think would be beneficial. I don't want to actually use our port sides at this point because I don't want to like use the card and like in case this does go to like a fatigue end state, I don't want to basically like go card negative, if that makes sense. So unfortunately here, we're not drawing like too many amazing cards, but we can at least use the extra blue here to potentially just pay for Quiver, which I think is reasonable. I'd also try to go for like a weird Gold Kiss line. Is that right? I feel like that's not worth. Like, I think I kind of wanted to try to save this Gold Kiss run for like the last Shallow Water Shark Harpoon, which we're going to shuffle back here. that's going to be my game plan. Interesting to think about. I feel like I don't really like using this card just on like a regular harpoon unless it's like a like double king shark or something crazy like that. I feel like I'd much rather use it just in a spot where I don't know, like I'm able to like chain kind of like back-to-back relevant disruption. So they give us the immovable here plus a card, so that means that they're going to be taking 2, keeping a 3-card hand, which is not that scary from the Ira side. Should probably be fine. So it looks like here they're also giving us a card, so maybe they're going like Last Fiddler Screen plus immovable or something like that. Overall, I think we're still kind of in okay shape here, though. And we're also still sitting on our armor, so we have like a little bit of extra life. Oh, they're going to give us the tunic. Okay. Is also reasonable. So I think here we're going to just try to set up this Redfin Harpoon in Arsenal and then pitch away this Yellowfin and get a shuffle. We had a couple awkward things like kind of line up for this game. Like the triple CNC turn was a little bit, or the triple 3-oak turn was obviously a little weird. So they have Bittering Thorns, Torrent Tempo, and a Concealed Blade. So their hand's like fine in terms of pushing damage, but I don't think it threatens lethal at least, which is the important part. All right, so let's go ahead and shuffle back some good threats here. So let's go ahead and grab King Shark, King Kraken, and then our Shallow Water. So notably, we do have to separate, choose 3 different harpoons here. So we'll go ahead and shuffle this back, and then we can go put these blues on the bottom. Probably should have thought more about the blues, but we're kind of running into a very long game, so I kind of want to make sure we get through it. And I think here, what do we want to do? It's like another hand where we don't necessarily even want to send our Redfin, do we? Maybe we do. Go ahead and maybe just cash in the block value here. So I assume last chain link is probably going to be Torrent of Tempo. In which case we're taking 5, going down to 5, but then we're sending at minimum 8, which is pretty good. I think we're still fine here. Again, we still do have a lot of D-Reacts to fight through, but I'm hoping that the last Burdens is going to probably try to bail us out this game. That's the goal, at least. And again, we are technically still just a little bit ahead on tempo, which is nice. So let's go ahead and send some more damage here. It's a nice humble 8, but if they don't have the D-Reacts to block it, could end up being annoying. At the very minimum, if they don't have like double D-React here, what it does mean is that we're kind of safe from like them sending like a Torrent of Tempo or like a Weakest Link or something. Because in general, like the best ways that they're going to be able to push damage are through their kind of like red cards that they want to actively play. But we're at the point where the overpower should start to hopefully kind of build up and be a little bit more annoying. So yeah, the 3 unmovables being gone is huge. You still have probably like 1 more Oasis and maybe like 1 of each of the D-Reacts. There's Flick. Maybe expecting another one here. Okay, Oasis is also very good for us because it means they're probably not going to be pushing damage on this hand. So that's also fantastic. Oh, and there's our last Burdens, actually. So that's quite good for us. So taking 1 and taking 2, I guess the only question is maybe do I want to try to block on the second Kadachi? I think I'm going to try to cash in this Throw Caution in the win because there are kind of like diminishing returns on Throw Caution where like if you start to get to the point where you like run out of deck, blocking with Throw Caution and you don't have 8 cards in deck is pretty bad. Let's go ahead and try to use it now. All right, so unfortunately we low rolled, hit the King Shark off the top, but that's actually going to set us up for a nice draw next turn, and I think the 1 extra damage shouldn't hopefully matter too much. Again, a little bit of unfortunate RNG, but I think we're still going to probably be fine here, especially with the Burdens. So let's go for the Burden. So the Burdens should now be fully online, which is very nice. So they cannot play any D-Reacts that they played in Graveyard. So that means their last Fate Foreseen should be stranded. I think that's pretty much it. But having the last Fate Foreseen out of their deck is actually like pretty good. So we're going to target our opponent. We're going to draw a card. What we could do, maybe try to crack towards the Ravenous Rabble, or like we could try to play the Ravenous Rabble and try to crack towards blues, but I think that's like a little bit risky. I think I'm just going to try to go for lethal here. So I think based on their hand, they should not be able to block this in a reasonable world. Like, they can block with, like, Fiddler's Green and, like, maybe, like, an attack action or something, but, like, I don't think they can actually break our hook here. Unless they have, like, a block card that I'm, like, not thinking of. So we'll see what they have here. If they have the wrong hand here, this could actually just be lethal, which would be funny. Right, so it looks like they probably at minimum have the last Fiddler's Green here, which is annoying, but, like, not the end of the world. Okay, they actually had Nip at the heels. That also makes a fair bit of sense. Alright, so we get a peek at the remaining cards in hand here. Could still be in a little bit of trouble here. Okay, Remembrance with Soul Bead Strike shouldn't be that bad, so they're going to go like 1, 2, 2, presumably. So I think we just need to block at least one card and we should be fine. So I think we even maybe just give up the Tunic here to pad the life total slightly. I think that's fine. Could have also probably tried to use our Gold Kiss Rum for better returns this game. I don't really know when the point where you're actually supposed to use the Gold Kiss was. Felt like pretty low value. It could also just be here. Like, we could try to use it to just send a Goldfin for a little bit of extra damage. I think that's, like, kind of reasonable. Alright, let's go ahead and turn over just a random yellow here. I think we can go ahead and turn over just a big game trophy shot. Again, we don't have Remembrance in this current configuration, so, like, buying them back is not generally possible. And now, if we want to be even safer, we could not drop to 1, but I think we're going to try to go for the kill this turn. I think this should be fine. So we're going to start actually cracking some gold here to fully drop to 1. Definitely a bit of a nail biter of the game. I thought we were in a lot better spot, and then we had like a couple things like not go our way, but that's sometimes how the deck plays. So let's go ahead and start cracking a bit of golds, because we want to find something to do with the Gold Kiss Rum here, I think. High current currency, unfortunately, not lining up this game, but that's fine. Again, it's mostly in the deck as like a blue 3 block with upside. I believe we can do it on this hand, right? So we go Murderous Rabble. Hopefully it comes in for 3. Then we can activate Hammerhead, send King Shark, Gold Kiss Rum, make a Marlynn token, send that, and that should be theoretically 15 damage. That's assuming that Murderous Rebel cooperates, which it partially did. Oh, actually, that actually might be better. Is that better? We'd have to crack gold incredibly well here. How many reds do we actually have left in the deck? We have 1 King Shark and 1 Kraken. Oh, so that could be interesting. So we draw the Shallow Water. No, I think that doesn't work, right? I think we still just need to make the Marlynn token here. Or the Goldfin. Alright, so now we can... Oh, we tap Marlynn though. Oh, okay. I think I maybe overthought this line. That's fine. I think I am not supposed to make the Goldfin there. Maybe there wasn't a really good way to use the Gold Kiss from this game. Maybe a little bit of a bad showcase, but that's fine. Okay, and they died because they eventually ran out of Duriax, which is kind of our core game plan anyways. So this is kind of like a game to show that, like, this deck can still kind of be fatigue, even if it's not your, like, primary game plan going into it, because you do have, like, a lot of, like, anti-fatigue tools just kind of, like, baked into the deck itself, which is, like, one of the kind of, like, hallmarks of a good fab deck, right? So Hammerhead basically meant that we got 4 value every turn over the course of the game, and then we also were able to crack our quiver for an initial, like, 30-ish value or like 29 value, because we shuffled back basically like 10 damage plus another 10 damage plus another 9 damage, where our Shallow Water is another 9 damage basically. But yeah, kind of like a game to show that even when things don't go necessarily according to plan, you can kind of always pivot your game plan to kind of at least try to put up a pretty decent fight, which I think we did. All right, but yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get a couple more games. We got a Victor, so I specifically wanted to try to find a Victor opponent because that's probably one of the more dominant meta heroes. So they're going to choose to go first. We're going to choose to go second. And then let's go ahead and bring in our 2 mutinies. I actually need to fix this board. So we're going to bring our 2 mutinies, and then we're going to probably cut the tip the barkeeps here. I think it's also kind of reasonable to cut like throw caution. I think I'm going to do something like this, basically cutting the tip the barkeeps, bringing in the mutinies. And then we're not going to assume fatigue victor. I think we're supposed to board as if it's just a normal victor. I'm going to try and do something like this. I think if you know they're playing, like if fatigue victor is like a little bit more prevalent, you can also bring in the remembrance, but we'll try it like this. So let's see what kind of victor we are playing against. Looks like they're more stock standard victor, which is a little bit more expected maybe. We do have the mutiny on the opening hand, which is also quite funny. Kind of a big fan of this card in this matchup. I know the person who was I forget their name again. I think it was Kai, right? Kai, I think, was also playing Mutiny in the AG Open, which is really cool. So shout out to Kai, who I think I think we've tested this at some point in Victor, but like I think we like kind of turned around on it. But I think like this card, I actually kind of like this card in Victor, especially if you're needing like specific Victor tech. Let's kind of just give them 2 cards here because I want to hold on to the Mutiny. I want to try to go for the Honing Hood on the Shallow Water Shark Harpoon here. We get to set up a really powerful turn 1 here. I'm hoping that we're going to draw into some extra blues here so that we get to play the Mutiny. I feel like in 90% of the cases we're going to be playing it anyways. But this is a fantastic hand. So we get to Mutiny, steal their gold. Now they're behind on gold, which is fantastic. Then we get to gold the tip, and it also gives us a free hook because we stole a gold this turn, which is cool. And now we also get to threaten their Thunderquake, which is pretty good. They might not care about their Thunderquake, but it is still pretty decent value. And if we do connect with it, we're obviously making another gold on hit. So basically the perfect opener against Victor. Okay, so like even if we lose this game, which is very possible, like this matchup can go a lot of different ways. At least seeing the Mutiny in action, I think, is like really cool. It's kind of actually hard to like resolve this card on camera, so I'm like actually very excited that we're able to kind of showcase like the like perfect scenario basically, which is great. I don't know. I get very excited about like new Marlynn tech. It's very cool to me. Right, seems like they're giving us the fridge, which makes sense, and they also are giving us a pummel. So I imagine this is blocking for. But not the end of the world for us. I can imagine that their ceiling next turn is going to be like pitching to Tectonic and then sending in a Thunderquake. So not the worst Victor hand that we could have been presented with. So again, I think we know they're drawing into the erase phase next turn. They blocked with 1 pummel. So we do have an option here to block out and potentially do some stuff next turn, or alternatively, we can just try to send it and go for the Yellowfin Harpoon, which is like a little bit more suspect. I'm like almost tempted to just like block here and here, set Shifting Tides, and like Arsenal the gold tip and pass, or something like this, maybe. I feel like I just don't want to be like forcing this hand through. Then do we care about erase phase? We lose all like talent types. I don't think we care. So I think what I'm gonna do. Your next arrow attack. Oh, so it would turn off our hammerhead, right? Or no? Is that how that works? I forget what a race face says. Maybe I can mouse over it here. Let's hit the hero cards and tokens they own lose all class and talent types. I think that's fine. All right, we're just gonna blockade and kind of see what happens here. There's also an argument to playing out the Shifting Tides here. I don't think that's super necessary. Again, the thing you want to generally do against Victor is like do on turn, off turn. So if you don't have like a super powerful hand, which I don't think sending Yellowfin is like the best thing in the world, you can kind of just like not send it. So this is a pretty strong hand from him here, getting to send a CNC. So I think what we're going to do is probably cash in our block value. Again, you don't really need to religiously hold on to Sea Lace and Gold-Baited Hook here. If you can use them to combine with the 3 block and then get the value there, that's also pretty good. The one downside is this hand, you need a... So we either are going to end up sending the Redfin Harpoon, or we're going to be... if we draw into like another like red harpoon off the top, that's probably what we're going to be sending instead. It's going to be an interesting turn. A lot of weird draws we can have here. Right, that's not one of the weird draws, though. The only downsides were, like, going off an arsenal here, which feels particularly bad. Well, he's at least still get to send 11, and we're both at 40, so, like, maybe not the end of the world here. Alright, all blues, presumably, makes sense. Do we have the option to block? Can't remember if we had the option to hold on to the red fin. Like, did we block with the blue fin this turn? Can't remember if I did. Oh, maybe I should have held on to the blue fin. That's actually a mistake on my end. I think I might have accidentally blocked with it there. You can watch back the recording, but I think that's like a maybe clear misplay. We'll soldier on, though. Alright, so we get to send 8, which is not bad. Again, we're like pretty even on life totals here, so it shouldn't be too painful. And I think we're just going to try to go for a shallow water here. Don't really know what they have in Arsenal, but I guess we're about to find out. The nice thing here is we can kind of use Tunic to kind of unbrick this seemingly pretty bad hand. We also haven't seen our King Sharks, not King Shark, King Sharks. No, not King Shark, not, okay, I can't say it. We have not seen our King Shark harpoons. Sorry, I'm having a stroke. Okay, I'm gonna send a shallow water shark harpoon instead. Don't leave that in the video. I know you're gonna leave that in the video. Okay, let's see, man. Fuck you. All right, King Shark. Okay. So, oh, we get a golden sun out of their arsenal. That's really good for us. They haven't made another gold here, so thing we now have to be careful of is their visit the golden ring estate, and we also rolled off our ponder token, which is unfortunate. This deck should theoretically be better about ponder tokens, but unfortunately, they made the gold here. This choke sailing might end up being like kind of a little bit annoying for us, because now we have to like give up Tunic. Or alternatively, we can like block out and try to Arsenal Kraken. Those are like the two main plays I see. I feel like giving up like full tempo is like a little suspect into Victor. So I think I'm maybe actually supposed to cash in the Tunic. Feels weird catching the Tunic when we're at like 30 life, but I think it's kind of reasonable here. Yeah, let's go ahead and cash in the Tunic and just turn over the Golden Sun. I think we're going to try to get a little bit greedy here and go for the port side, so that we could try to maybe steal one of our gold back. If we hit the yellow here, it's going to be a little bit unfortunate, but we hit the blue, so that's great. Now we get to threaten another hook activation, which means that their next visit is only going to potentially be coming in for 3. And if they do have a visit in hand here, that we're also going to be pretty good shape. So we get to steal our gold back, and then let's take a peek at their hand. So looks like they got a pummel boulder tray. Okay, too bad from them. So at least it's face up to us, so we know it's kind of coming. Okay, they're gonna probably pummel the golden sun instead. That makes a fair bit more sense. But I think we're just gonna try to take a little bit of an off turn here and just try to set up our King Shark and Arsenal, which we finally found. So imagine they're just pitching the boulder drop to pummel this. So we're gonna go ahead and give them 2 cards here. Probably want to give them the King Shark. Just so we get, actually, hold on. I think I'm supposed to give them, like, I think I'm supposed to do this, which is weird. Not in love with this, but I think they're almost, like, guaranteed to pummel me here. So we'd rather, like, discard this, I think. And let's go ahead and turn over our golden tip. So we have a nice little pile of gold here. The biggest thing is just hoping that they're not going to be able to push a ton of damage. So we're pretty even on life totals. So like this is kind of the point where if they are able to like stabilize and kind of really keep disrupting us turn after turn, then we're going to be in a bit of trouble. But now we get to get pummeled again, taking a lot of damage. But now we draw like the bread and butter hand of Marlynn. So if we get to manage to keep this hand, we're going to be in fantastic shape. Oh, but the Spinal Crush might put a damper on that. That's actually not the end of the world, though, because we can still go, like, 3 Oak and a King Shark. So it could be worse, but unfortunately we do still have to block this. I think I'm supposed to preserve a trophy shot in the deck. Or am I? Maybe it's actually better. I don't even know if we're going to make it to second cycle. So, like, blocking with these now so that we have, like, an extra chance of, like, keeping an arsenal, I think is reasonable with the blue here. We have a test of strength blocked or pitched as well, which is really nice. So we could try to crack a gold. How many buffs, I guess, do we have left in our deck? For what it's worth, they are sitting on no gold right now, so their future visits are pretty poor. I'm gonna crack a little bit of gold, just see what there is to see. Yeah, if we get like a buff here, that's probably like best case scenario. I think I'm gonna crack one more gold, because if we draw like a buff, we're happy. If we draw a blue, we also don't have to play this 3-oak, and we can try to save it for a turn where we draw the buffs. So I think I actually kind of like just popping a little bit of gold there to kind of dig a bit deeper. We get to send 10 here and then also preserve the 3-oak, which is pretty high value. And I'm hoping here that they're not going to be able to like keep like a CNC pummel or something like crazy like that. That would probably be like worst case scenario here. Okay, they do have that boulder drop. Okay, CNC on top is also good info. Let's see if we can do anything to stop them from playing the boulder drop. And the answer to that is no. However, we can at least get them to pitch the Golden Sun here, which has some decent value. So we'll take the Cranial Crush here. So most likely, actually next turn, we maybe don't even have to block this, as funny as that sounds. This is like an interesting spot. What we could do is block with the Kraken and then get hit by the boulder drop, put the bluefin and a harpoon on top, and then play cheating, guarantee we're drawing into this arrow. And then we have 2 floating after the 3-oak here. So I think this actually kind of works out, right? And this does guarantee that we're going to be having an arrow to play with this, and we know that they have a CNC next hand. We could also try to put the red fin on top if we know they have CNC, but that would require them drawing multiple reds. I feel like I'd rather attack the resource base than the reds, if that makes sense. Like, sending the blue fin seems a little bit better. We're actually going to take the damage here to put the blue fin on top so that we're guaranteeing that we're going to draw into the arrow. I think I like this play. It's like a little bit suspect, but I think it makes sense in my brain at least. All right, we'll go for the cheating. So they did pitch a test of Iron Grip. A mutiny here is not particularly good, but the first mutiny was pretty crazy at least. And then the question is, do I want to crack a gold to draw an extra card? And that would also let us threaten Hook. Yeah, I think that's reasonable. So the last card that we're worried about is like another Test of Iron Grip or like double Test of Iron Strength or something crazy like that. I think I'm still supposed to go for the Hook here anyways, because we're sending 11. And they're pretty much out of armor at this point. So they need like multiple block cards or like a D-React here or something. And they might not even be on D-Reacts, which is nice. All right, unfortunately, they had 2 of them and 2 pretty premium ones at that. So they have the test as well as the test of strength, or I guess the double test here. Oh, but unfortunate though. Oh, we hit their triple Donnie off the top though. So now they have to like maybe reroll their gold here. Oh, and we hit again, so that means they're going to discard a card. Oh, that is like crazy RNG for us. That probably should not have happened. All right, we will take our luck here. I think we're actually supposed to like use our Hook here, as bad as that sounds. Well, like they don't have any gold to steal anymore, so it's actually like not that bad, I think. Interesting. A lot of weird sequencing, a lot of weird decision points this hand. All right, so let's go ahead and play our trophy shot. So we're just going to try to kill them from this point. So we're not going to arsenal that just yet. We're going to go ahead and play our cheating scoundrel out and then a shifting tide. So this is actually a pretty fun Victor game to play into. So they're doing a little bit more like aggro Victor. This game kind of sucks, but I think we're going to make do, I guess. So we at least get to send our Yellowfin for some pretty big value here. So sending it for 15. Could end up sniping like a Remembrance or like a Golden Sun if they draw into multiples. But at the very minimum, this is just like pushing damage and presumably gold, unless they draw like some more block cards here. But we'll see. It could also be on staunches, which we have not seen yet. But given their more aggressive configuration, I think semi-unlikely. Right, them also blocking with the shield means that their visit's not going to be very good next turn, so we just have to worry about spinal mostly. Okay, I think we can manage that. That being said, we did just pitch our last Reoak, which is rather unfortunate. But we'll make do. So now we have kind of an interesting spot. So I think what we're supposed to do from this position is basically just try to keep threatening lethal with Goldfin Harpoon. So we'll go ahead and give them 6 block here. And then we're hoping for a couple things to happen. We're hoping for like a blue or like a good card off the top. And then we're also hoping that maybe we can try to send this Catch of the Day, which I think is technically possible. All right, so we're going to go and crack a gold and try to send this. So I'm even going to put the Catch of the Day on as just an extra +2 here, just so we're like extra threatening lethal. But we might just barely have it here, again, in part due to a bit of kind of crazy good RNG in our favor. But I think they also had some good RNG as well, so maybe not too bad. But anyways, that was a pretty good game to, I guess, showcase the Victor matchup. Again, not all Victors are going to be played like this. Again, it very much depends on what the meta is. So, like, you can expect either more aggressive Victor, or you can expect a little bit more, like, fatigue-oriented Victor. And then depending on how the Victor presents, you might want to sideboard a little bit differently. But this kind of shows at least the strength of Mutiny on the Battalion Bark, which is a card that I think a lot of people have been talking about, but I've never actually been able to like capture a really good game of it on camera. So I'm glad that we're actually able to kind of showcase it here. But yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get maybe one last game. Right, so we're playing against a Slippy, which I think is a deck that I think is on the rise. I don't actually know. Okay, I do actually have a sideboard guide for this. I actually know if second's right, but I generally treat Slippy as a bit of an aggro deck, so I think it's kind of reasonable. We do just have to be a bit careful on this one because they can sometimes send like some pretty good, like high disruption kind of turns on turn 0. So we have to be a little bit careful. But let's go ahead and get into it. So I think our opponent's name, I don't know in chat, but if you're playing Slippy on 420, then you know who you are. But they said they're a big fan of the channel, so I appreciate that. But we have a pretty good hand, at least for honing gun purposes here, which is really nice. Let's go ahead and just cash in a bit of block value here. So I'm generally looking to try to block with like 3 cards in this hand. They want to... Oh, yeah, one more time. There you go. But generally what I'm looking for on this hand is to try to block with like... just trying to block with like 3 cards here and then try to arsenal the Redfin. The one thing we do have to be a bit cautious of is just disruption in general. This Graphene Chelicera also might be a bit unknown. They might actually have to block like 6 here, and if they have another Leave No, this could be quite dangerous. So I guess the question is, would they pitch a Leave? They actually might pitch a Leave No. I think what we're actually supposed to do is like block here and then go for... So I think I want to actually take the damage here. Because if they pump here, I think I'm like kind of fine with that. It also means that like we're getting rid of the mark, which I think is beneficial. The only like downside to that block is if they have like T-Tox, then we're kind of in bad shape. But I think this block kind of insulates us from them having a Leave No here, because what we can do is basically like arsenal the Redfin and then block 4 with our armor plus card. So I think that's why I generally still like Honing Hood kind of going second into Slippy, because you generally are going to be able to find an opportunity to at least mostly block out and then still kind of keep personal. We could be in a bit of trouble here, but I'm actually going to try to insulate ourselves against an inertia trap by playing out the Redfin and giving it Go Again. Giving it Go Again means that in the worst case scenario, if they do go for inertia trap, we can just play the Codex afterwards and then still get like a Ponder token, which gives us like a potential chance at like a random arsenal. Better than having like no arsenal at all, right? But ideally, we don't really want to play Codex for like no value. But we'll see what they do here. And not all Slippies are actually running like a more defensive package, so it kind of depends on the player. Right, so we have a Saver into Mark the Black Widow into in the backs. Depends what their arsenal is, but I think in general the correct pick is probably between the Mark and the Saver. I think since they don't have like a Kiss of Death that I know about currently, I'm still probably supposed to take the Mark here. I'll make them try to like find a good opportunity to play out the Saber. Yeah, we'll go ahead and close the chain here and then just arsenal our Codex for next turn, so we don't have to worry about Inertia Trap, which is fantastic. This hand could use a little bit of help. Not quite sure what this hand wants to be yet. Right, so it seems like they're maybe just going to go for the dagger play. As weird as this is, so the debate is between keeping 3-oak plus blue or keeping. I don't actually know which one's correct. Let's just like not block this, but I think I do want to try to like deny them the card. But maybe this is like so low value that we're actually like kind of fine if they want to pop like their Clave or Prey Spotters. I think I'm like kind of okay with this. The only downside is that like we're gonna maybe discard the 3-oak. We can also make a Gulfin to avoid that. So maybe the correct block here is to not block. Because like their turn right now is like fundamentally below rate unless they do something right. And we don't even know if they're really gonna do anything. I think I'm okay with this. Yeah. So let's go ahead and then tip the Barkeep here just so we get a little bit of extra value. Not give them a gold because we don't really care about that card being in our deck, but we'll go ahead and make a Gulfin here. And one of the powerful lines that we can actually go for here is to try to keep the 3-oak, discard the Goldfin, and then just grab another Redfin here. And the Codex and the Ponder should be also fairly relevant here. We could have also considered like a Sea Lace line where like crack an extra gold. I wonder if that was better. A lot of the lines that you take with this deck are going to be like, you're going to take one line and then you're going to see like a better line afterwards and then you're going to hit yourself on the head. I don't actually know if that was like guaranteed to be a better line, but I think it was probably worth going for, right? Like we can Sea Lace this and then like crack the gold, draw an extra card, and then 3-oak afterwards. Maybe that's better. Okay, but they have a shelter here, so it shouldn't matter too much. At least we get 2 cards out of their hand, so that's good. Ooh, Tar Pit Trap is a card that's like so close to being cut in a lot of my lists, but like in the matchups where it's good, it's like one of the best cards in the deck. So we get to see Tar Pit Trap also at like functionally full value here. So I don't really know what their arsenal is. I feel like they've had it for maybe a couple turns. But we'll go ahead and yeah, I'll definitely try to take a dagger for one there. This is like a little bit of an interesting. Oh, I guess this won't hit from the Tar Pit Trap, so we actually shouldn't care about this. Yeah, I think there's no reason to care about this, right? Because even if they play like a Codex of Frailty or like a Leave No Witnesses or something, it's still be coming in for -1, so we're still kind of fine on that front. Lots of interesting things to think about with this deck. So let's go ahead and start with our cheating. So that I want to kind of highlight this because I know a lot of people kind of struggle knowing like what the powerful thing Marlynn is doing. But look at this hand, right? We had a buff, we had an arrow, we have a blue, and we have a 3-oak. So that's like the perfect Marlynn hand that we want to be playing out because that means that we're going to be sending out minimum like a 13 damage harpoon here. Or I think maybe even a maximum of 13 damage harpoon. But like we can also do some stuff with like the gold room. So like maybe there is a little bit extra we can do. But like this is like the fundamentally powerful thing you're doing in Marlynn is you're sending like King Shark Harpoon for like 13, 16, 20 even sometimes. Like a lot of people sometimes struggle with like what the deck is supposed to be doing, and that's basically it, right? Like you're just a very disruptive deck that's trying to send good numbers, good damage, and then sometimes you just like completely blow your opponent out of the water with like a King Shark Harpoon. Right, so let's take a peek at their hand. I imagine Slippy is generally a bit more attack action focused, so I imagine we're getting another back out of their hand here. Still don't really know what their arsenal is, but I guess we're probably about to find out this turn. We shall see. They're pitching the Codex. Interesting. feel like they maybe even just have another codex in Arsenal. That's the only thing I could think of, or maybe like some attack react that's been stranded there for a while, like a spike with Blood Red or something. At least my guess. I think it's like an attack react, like a razor, like a is that card like Razor's Edge or something? That's my guess for what that card is. I'm not sure. But yeah, now we get to go for a pretty good trophy line here. There's also the opportunity to go for like a tipple thing. I think trophy is generally like our best gold outlet, so like I don't think we need to worry necessarily about like refreshing our hook activation here. We're already pretty far ahead on gold, so like I kind of want to just convert this hand as much as possible. Let's go ahead and even crack this and maybe try to look for like a codex or something. Shifting Tides is also not bad here. So I think what we're gonna do is start with the Murderous Rabble and then just kind of see what we want to do from there. Most likely it's gonna involve like playing the Shifting Tides out here and then pitching to Hammerhead, pull Tunic, and then send Arrow. So we get like a 15 damage turn cycle here, which is great. And then we also get to present like 12 disruption on the back of it, which is fantastic. Again, this is Marlynn sometimes like she has her issues, right? But like the thing that you're like fundamentally doing is actually kind of very powerful. Like sending evasive disruption while also sending like a high damage output is like very crazy. Again, there are some like definitely like limitations to the deck, like your action points are very restrained, and, like some other things, but like in general, like the deck is still doing a pretty powerful thing. All right, so we have Kiss of Death, Codex of Frailty. So I have to imagine that this card in Arsenal is like some kind of react here. So we're pretty incentivized to not block the Kiss of Death there. Like, I'm imagining this is probably a Razor's Edge or some other attack react, like maybe even a Tarantula Toxin or something. But yeah, we're gonna go and say no blocks here. Oh, a Justinic. Okay, that also kind of tracks. Maybe just having that card kind of straight in Arsenal for a bit is a bit painful. But the nice part is they don't really have like a super disruptive thing they can get out of the Codex. Like the best thing they can probably get here is like a Mark of the Black Widow, which we're kind of fine with because we can block. So getting Codex here, not the end of the world. That being said, they're not even going to go for the Codex. They're also recognizing that like we're kind of fine getting Codex in that position. Okay, so this actually might be a cool rum line. Let's see if we can go for this. I actually don't know if we can do it anymore. I think we need to crack one more gold here so that we're trying to keep an arsenal. We need to pitch 6, and then we like try to arsenal another shallow water. So sometimes the rum is going to be really awkward. Again, I'm not really partial to rum in like my non-competitive list, but I think at a budget list, it kind of makes a fair bit of sense to run rum. I'll see if I can try to find a video to maybe like showcase the rum lines, but I think like there are definitely some really cool turns you can set up where you go like harpoon into like a shallow water shark harpoon. Getting that specific hand to line up is sometimes funky though. And I think we can pretty safely threaten hook here. We don't particularly care about this arsenal. I kind of actually want them to codex since they don't have a lead no yet in their bin. So like they're not threatening our arsenal, so which means we can just like get back another king shark if they do try to go for a codex on us. We'll see what they want to do here. Again, the shallow water should at least put pressure on that codex. Make them maybe give us like 2 reacts here or something would probably be my bet. As assuming that they can actually block it in the first place. Again, the one thing that you're actually going to miss between this and like kind of like the non-budget list is probably like quick dodge flexors in this matchup. I think that's actually probably also a bit of a powerhouse card, but it might be a little bit tricky to use. I actually haven't played a ton against Slippy because I think it's like a generally favorable matchup. I think quick dodge conceptually should be good. So this makes a fair bit of sense. So I think we are actually supposed to pay into the wager. I actually didn't think that they were going to block it, but I think we're actually fine if they want to codex us here because we want to buy back a king. It's like the ideal. Okay, unfortunately we drew another one, but that's not the end of the world. do have to be a little bit concerned about their Mark of the Black Widow, so we probably do still have to block this turn. Probably looking to block with like these plus the King Shark. I think this still makes a fair bit of sense. Not like a super powerful turn, but sending King Shark for 9 is still pretty reasonable. Right, and then they pitched a Codex earlier, so I think they still have like one more Codex live. But going off an Arsenal here, I think is quite reasonable. You might get like attack react plus attack action. Maybe they're just gonna let us hit here, which is also reasonable. We got a Lobotomy, a Mark of the Black Widow, Spike with Blood Rot. So I think the way to make this hand the most awkward for them is, well, it depends on what they pondered into. I'm debating between the Lobotomy and the Mark of the Black Widow here. It's kind of close. It's closer than it would seem. I think I'm still supposed to take the blue, maybe, because I don't know if I... Well, I do kind of... The issue with Lobotomy is they can't actually equip the dagger, right? So, because they already have 2 daggers, they can't equip a third one. I think I'm actually supposed to leave them with the Lobotomy and take the blue here. Kind of an interesting decision point. We'll see how that actually like plays out for us, but I think I want to make it hard for them to play out their Spike with Blood Rot is the idea. So how does Spike with Blood Rot actually work? Can they Spike with Blood Rot on a dagger? Target attack action card with stealth. So no, they cannot do that on a dagger. Which means that they're going to go Lobotomy into Spike with Blood Rot, which is fine, right? They have to like flick their clave here to get the Lobotomy value, right? How does this work? When this hits a hero, if you control or bid a class, they lose all hero card abilities during the next action phase. So this has like functionally no text. Yeah, I know. Very sad. Okay, but yeah, the Lobotomy, unfortunately, not triggering for our opponent here, which I feel a little bit bad. But yeah, we at least get to have a nice hand here. Oh, it looks like they maybe haven't played something in a while, which is also fair. But yeah, we get a nice, juicy, big game trophy shot line here. So most likely we're going to be sending the Goldfin, although we did just draw into one of the best cards in our deck, so I suppose we'll pivot to that. And then let's go ahead and crack 1 gold here. Hope to draw into another blue. Okay. So now we have to pivot the game plan just a little bit here. So now we're going to save this Codex for next turn. And then go for Hammerhead for 14. Not too shabby. Again, this might just kill them here. So we're probably still in decent shape. But yeah, it looks like they maybe could have blocked with the 2 Razor's Edge plus leave no. GG's. So let me give a shout out to this player. I'll give a shout out to Crowbar in the chat, who is our gracious Arakni opponent there. But yeah, thank you for the game. Always nice to play against fans as well. But yeah, that kind of goes to show like a little bit more of like kind of an aggro matchup. So I try to get a little bit of variety in this video. Basically, showcase like kind of like a heavy fatigue deck, a more like aggressive deck, and then Victor, which is like a bit more of like a mid-range or like kind of more of like a variety deck, depending on how they kind of build it. So what I wanted to just do is basically just showcase kind of like a variety of Marlyn games just to get people acquainted with the deck maybe, and they're not like super familiar with the deck. But hopefully this kind of goes to show some of like the more powerful things you can kind of do with the hero, as well as just kind of like some of the fun and interesting lines. Because I think like fundamentally like the best part about this hero is just like how much fun it is to play. And that's like what's kept me around in Fab, is just like having a hero that's like very, very fun to play, that rewards you for basically putting a lot of time into a hero and like learning all the different like kind of powerful things she can. But anyways, hope you all enjoyed this video. And again, if you have any questions in the comments, this is going to be like kind of like the Marlyn introductory video. So like you have any concerns, questions in the comment, feel free to post them. And I'm going to try to do my best to maintain like the 2 deck lists that I'm going to post, as well as just kind of like answering kind of like the harder questions about Marlin. So we're going to try to do that via kind of discussion in the YouTube comments. So if you have any questions, feel free to let me know, ping me on Discord, or join the Flesh and Bad Discord as well. But for now, thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.
And a special thank you to all the folks who decided it would be a good idea to give us $2 on Patreon. We really appreciate the support, but it's obviously never required.